everybody. Before I start, I just want to say what a privilege it's been to be here and to just be inspired by this range of perspectives and ideas and the inspiration. And for all of you in this school, I encourage you to find the part that makes sense to you and follow your dreams. This is a self-portrait with Pygmy. This is the tallest man in the village. I'm looking around the room, and from what I can tell, most of you are probably my height or even bigger. Here in the center of Africa, I'm a giant. Perspective is everything. I think I have one of the best jobs in the world. I get to photograph people doing amazing things. And I've been able to travel around the world and watch people do the impossible. I was there the day Jim Rippey did the first backflip on a snowmobile. That year, 2 people tried. One broke his neck and one broke his back. I was really scared, but there was one skill I've learned, is that when I'm with people who express confidence and surety, I keep my mouth shut, and I follow them and I support them. So how does someone do the impossible? I mean, we all love to do these things, right? But it's not like when we watch somebody who does something that we can't do, that after we watch it enough times that we think we can do it. This is a picture of Shane McCarkey. He spent his whole life pushing limits. Now, here's the first clue. If you want to do the impossible, you have to first find out where that boundary is. Whatever it is that you're focusing on, figure out where that line is. And through baby steps, keep trying and pushing and staying positive and teaching yourself to see yourself doing what has never been done before. Now, it doesn't stop there. In fact, almost always, behind this positive, unrelenting, hardworking focus, there's a team, there's a support, there's an amazing teacher, there's a coach, there's a friend. And they're the person that, well, in my case, my parents. That when you say, I'm going to do this, they look at you, they don't go, oh, no way. They say, awesome, how are you going to do it? How are you going to get there? This is a picture of Johnny Mosley. Johnny Mosley's transformational moment happened when he went to the Nagano Olympics and he won the gold medal. He did a trick called the dinner roll, and in that moment changed his life. It was a transformational moment. In fact, most of the people who do these spectacular things, things that we think are impossible, they have a transformational experience that allows them to do something that they never thought was possible before. And what's amazing about those transformational moments is that once you have it, it becomes easier to keep doing the impossible. So, I want to share a story with you that I went through. And the funny thing is, despite all this experience, and seeing people do these incredible things, I didn't see this coming. In fact, I never saw myself as an extreme athlete who does these crazy stuff. You have in front of you 2 adaptive athletes, Johnny Davis and Grant Corrigan. And these guys came up to me and with the team that their goal was to send a message to the world. They wanted to be the first adaptive athlete to ski to the South Pole. They wanted to do it to raise awareness, to send a message so that everybody would know that there's nothing you can't do. In the process, we also wanted to make a movie. So they contacted my friend Tom Day, who's this amazing cinematographer, and who does do these extraordinary things. In fact, before he became a cameraman, he was one of those extreme athletes. Now, Johnny Davis, at 18, was in a car accident, and has spent more than half of his life in the chair. So that's all he knows. In fact, he's been so good at it that he's won 2 gold medals, once in Lillehammer and then at Nagano. Now, the guy on the right was kind of new to it. In fact, about a year and a half, actually exactly a year before I met them, Grant was out with some friends in Sonora Pass, and they were making a movie with their snowmobiles, jumping around, and he went and did his giant gap jump. Unfortunately, he overshot his landing. He overshot his landing by 2 feet. 2 feet changed his life. When he woke up in the hospital after the helicopter ride, his love of his life, his wife who he'd been married to for only 4 months, was by his side. Tears in her eyes, she says, don't you dare change our dreams. We're going to overcome this. I don't care what the doctors say. We are going to change this situation. You're going to walk again. You're going to dance with me. We're going to change the world. Positive attitude is what drove them. It's why they were attracted to each other. So they asked me to come along. And I said, look, I'll help you guys. This is an amazing thing. I want to be part of it. But let's be perfectly clear. I'm not going to ski the South Pole with you guys. Just like I'm not going to climb Everest, and I'm not going to do a triathlon or anything crazy like that, because, I'm an artist. And I can do decent athletes like most people in the room, but I'm not a guy who's about to risk my life on something like that. So we fly up to the Arctic Circle, and this is a picture of 4 o'clock in the morning, and we start training. And we had to develop equipment and figure out all these things that were necessary to be able to pull this off. And we had a great experience. I shot some great commercial stills, and the idea was that they would use my pictures to approach these corporations to raise the necessary money to be able to fund this trip. And all along, they're making the movie. We get back to Tahoe and decide, well, let's try to do a fundraiser and let our community know what we're doing. So we do a 4-day circumnavigation around Lake Tahoe. And that's all it took for me. By the end of the 4th day, we completed it, and we had all these community members who came out and supported us, and God, I just had no doubt that these guys were going to pull it off. I mean, no one's ever done it before. They can't even walk. And yet, if you were to ask me if these guys were going to go to the bottom of the world and it's only been 500 people who've ever skied there, that these guys were going to accomplish that, I had no doubt they would. So, sitting around having a beer that night, they started talking about who they were going to find to finish my job. Because I wasn't going to ski the South Pole, and after my involvement, they realized they really wanted another cameraman there, somebody like me who shoots stills. And so here I am sitting in the room, and they're talking about finding someone to finish something because I couldn't. Well, that didn't sit very right with me. So I talked to Doug Stout, who's the expedition leader. You can see him on the right. And this is the guy who's got the most trips to the polar regions, and he makes a living guiding people there. And I said, Doug, I know it wasn't part of the plan, but I gotta go. And he looked at me, he's like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, no, I want to go. He says, look, you're an amazing artist. I love you as a friend. We've done these great trips, but you're out of shape and you're kind of a jump show. I said, what? Well, you leave things unzipped, you fall over, and that's not the kind of place that I want to take somebody where they'll die. I said, so no. Well, of course, all I heard was no. So I got on the phone and I called Tom and I called Tao and I called Grant. And I'm like, Doug said no. He says I can't do it. And they were all like, what are you talking about? Of course you can do this. Come on, come with us. You got to do this. You're part of this. Now, let me remind you, none of them have ever done this before. So I went back to Doug and I'm like, I'm going. He said, well, we're going to Patagonia for our next training in 6 weeks. And if you can keep up, do 10 miles a day, drag a sled and carry all your gear and still do your job, I guess you can go. But 6 weeks, come on, look at you. So I woke up the next morning scared. Let me ask a question to the audience. When's the last time you committed yourself to doing something you weren't sure you could do? I mean, we're taught nowadays to always have plan B, right? You kind of put one foot in and test the waters and see if we can do it. The reality is, we very rarely risk everything. And whether I liked it or not, I put myself in a place where I either had to step up or pull out. So I decided there was nothing more important in my life at this point than this. And luckily enough, I had an incredible support system that just acted and treated me like they knew every sheep. And I trained like I've never trained before. I've never focused on something to that level that I did. My training was to come out of my house, catch a tire at my waist, and drag it to the top of the mountain. 3,000 feet to the top and back. And I did it 4 or 5 days a week. And I had a personal trainer, I got on a bike, and I ran, I did all those things. But the tire dragging was the one that got me. And I'd walk into people as I'm dragging this tire along, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'd give them this answer about going to the South Pole and this and that, and I walk away and I'm like, what am I doing? So, anyways, to make a long story short, I get to the bottom of the world, to Punta Arenas, Chile, right before the end of the year, and we're ready to go. I've got everything packed, I've got all this gear, I've got all this training, and I've never prepared for something like this before in my life. And we get to the airport, and I look at the marquee, and it's not like a town or a city, it's a continent. That's when I know there's something different happening here. This is a picture of Shauna saying goodbye to Grant. Now, I just need to tell you that the entire year, we had an amazing amount of challenges. This gentleman, and this couple for that matter, exuded incredible positivity. In fact, they had a mantra that they kept saying, and it didn't mean anything to me at the point the first 3 quarters of the year, but at the end it would be critical. Very simple. Possibility through positivity. possibility through positivity. Anything is possible if you're positive. So we take this oversized jet, we fly 5 hours across Drake Passage. There's no windows in this thing. We land on a 5-mile ice runway, so you don't need brakes. I mean, none of this sounds real, right? I've been in planes all my life. I've never had an experience like this. We have 24 hours to get our final gearing up, and we get on this plane. Oh, excuse me, this is the runway. I think I take a step back. Here's our team. That's me with the camera on the far left, Tom Day, the cinematographer, on the right. We brought along a third member. His only job was to keep the cameraman safe and help us, the crew. He's a polar explorer himself. Next to him, Tal Fletcher, Grant Corrigan, and Doug Stout, the expedition leader. Now you'll notice Johnny's not in the picture. Unfortunately, when we were in Patagonia, Johnny rubbed the skin off his bottom side, got an infection, got sick, and came back, spent weeks in the hospital. When he finally came out, he had lost all his fitness, and it was clear that he wasn't physically capable to do a trip with us. And I have to tell you, it was one of the more challenging things that I had to process. I mean, he was the pro. He was the guy who got me into this, and now he's not going. And leaving without him was really hard, and I can tell you, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I'll come back to this later. So here's a picture. This is 11 o'clock at night on top of the Antarctic Plateau. It's the equivalent of 11,000 feet. It's 40 below zero. And I walked away from the plane and my teammates, in all my warm, heavy clothes, and I take this picture, and at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I'm physically there, it's happening, I'm feeling confident, the sun is out, it's 11 o'clock at night. And we, as planned, we decided we're going to do a little bit of a start, so that before we set camp, we're going to actually get a couple miles under our belt. So we get geared up, and as we're going away, I watch the plane take off. And it gets smaller, and smaller, and smaller. And I'm like, oh, I guess there's no turning back. So we push, and all these things that Doug, the experienced person, told us about comes to life. And, it was so cold that there was this friction that trying to drag a 100-pound sled was brutal. And we just pushed and dragged these sleds for like 3 hours, and then set camp. And went through all these things that we had practiced, and when we finally had boiled our water and made our food and did all this stuff, someone asked the question that none of us really wanted to ask. How far did it go? Well, Petter pulls out the GPS, and he looks at it, and he's like, ooh, we'd gone less than a mile. Okay, so 3 hours, a mile. We had enough food for 12 days. We had 79 miles to go. We weren't going to make it. No one said anything. But I can tell you that's what I was thinking about that night. I was like, are we going to pull this off? So, all I can tell you, what happened next is we all became incredibly focused. We treated Grant like an IndyCar driver. And the key for him was to keep him moving all day long. And he would push with everything he had. It didn't matter what the conditions were like. And again, we're not talking about walking. We're talking about with your arms reaching out and pulling yourself along. And he would go at it as much as he could all day until he had nothing left. And when he was right near that threshold of I'm done, he would give a signal to our expedition leader, and Doug would run ahead with Tal, the other guy, and they would set up camp. So with the last remaining strength in his body, he would roll into camp, and within 30 seconds, he would be inside in his bag getting warm. And we would socialize. And one of the neat things is we would call back on the satellite phone every night and talk to the world back here. And it's this weird space, and it reminded me of the role that technology should be in our lives. Because the technology allowed us to share emotionally what we were going through, but it wasn't about the technology. This is a place that I cannot compare to anywhere else. Being on the plateau was like nothing else I'd ever experienced. There was this dome effect, and it was everywhere you looked, there was nothing. When the whiteout came, you couldn't tell forward or backwards, up or down. How can you measure progress if you can't tell that you've gone anywhere? I mean, we were going towards this goal that they said was there. We were burning 20,000 calories a day, the most physically challenging thing I've ever done in my life, but I couldn't tell that I'd accomplished anything. There was days I'd wake up in the tent and it was blowing hard and I knew this was going to be brutal. 50 below zero with challenging winds, and the only way to get out of my tent, I was like, wow, if Grant can do this, I have to. I am not going to be the weak link. So, and I kept telling myself that no matter what happens, it's going to be a short day. I know Grant's going to be struggling like the rest of us, so we'll just got to get out there for a few hours. What's amazing is Grant posted the longest days we've ever done on those hardest days. So how did he do this? Positive attitude. Now, additionally, I've been a cameraman, and I've been lucky because I've got these amazing clients and great jobs. And everywhere I go, they hook me up with helicopters and boats and motorcycles and wherever I need so I can get the shot. That didn't happen out here. Every time I wanted to take a picture, it came with a price. I had to take my gloves off, and I had some liners. But I literally, within 30 seconds, it felt like people were poking needles in my hands. And then, eventually, I was so cold I couldn't feel my hands. I'd go back to my sled, and the team kept moving. We were not allowed to stop them. And you would think after the third or fourth or fifth time of shooting the same thing, because nothing's changing, that you would choose not to take the picture. So you didn't burn your hands, and you didn't have to spend an hour and a half trying to catch the team member ahead again. It didn't happen that way. What I saw, what I felt in my heart was this incredibly inspiring thing I was seeing. Grant and his mindset affected us all, and we as a team chose a positive outlook, no matter how hard it looked, it was. So, I guess this is a self-portrait. Well, not a self-portrait. It's a picture of me at 40 below zero and driving my sled. I was born and raised in Hawaii. In fact, so, you ever look at a picture of yourself and like, oh my God, is that me? Right? What's the one constant in the universe? Anybody know? Change, right. How did I get here? Right? Oops, excuse me. It's very hard for me to explain what Grant did, but let me paint a little picture for you. First of all, in Grant's words, the cold temperature and the friction was so hard that it was like being styrofoam on sandpaper. So instead of sliding along, that's what we think skis are like, he had to reach out and he'd stop. But here's a simple metaphor. Go home, find a cardboard box, sit inside the cardboard box and get 2 sticks and push yourself across the carpet. Now, most of the people in the room, within a few minutes, they're like, no, it's too hard. If you're really stubborn, you will push yourself across the room. Well, it might take you an hour. It might take you 2, depends how big the room is. But it's incredibly hard. So hard that it's like, no way. Grant pushed himself 80 miles in 40 to 50 below zero. And he did it for one reason. Because he had this positive mindset that he wanted to make this happen. It was necessary for him to accomplish this goal if he was going to ever get to his bigger goal of being able to walk again. So here's the grand finale. We've spent a year preparing for this. And again, we're making this movie, so the cameramen are out, and everybody has wireless mics, and this is the moment. And at this moment, Grant turns to Tao and says, wow, I mean, I know this is the moment, I'm so grateful, and this is it. But there's something wrong. Tao's like, what do you mean? He's like, how is it possible that this is my incredible life achievement moment for me, and the love of my life, Shauna's not here? Because without her, I couldn't do any of this stuff. So Tao looks at him and is like, dude, it's the South Pole. It's like, you're going to see your wife in a week, we're filming, can you get it together, please, So he does, and then as planned, 100 feet away, Grant gets out of his chair, he borrows a ski from each of his teammates. And on the 100th anniversary, when Scott skied to the South Pole for the first time, Grant and his teammates arrived at the South Pole. And I mean, it was just an incredible moment, and it's hard to explain. And there's this crowd watching this in front of USA. And in the crowd, there's this one hooded figure. And this person comes up to Grant, and he's giving away hugs, and we're all good, and gives a hug, and then doesn't step away. In fact, gets closer. And there's this brief moment where Grant's obviously very uncomfortable, and kind of going in for a kiss, and the person pulls away his goggles and her mask. And lo and behold, it's Shauna, his love, his wife, there to celebrate this moment. This would never have happened if Johnny hadn't gotten sick. And it wasn't until we came up with this idea right after, and everybody knew except for Grant. And we carried this on the ice every day, knowing that when he finally got there in this moment, his love would be there. Now, what I saw in Grant skiing to the South Pole was the most radical physical thing I've ever seen a human do. Okay, and I spent some time photographing people doing crazy stuff. He went way beyond that. But in the end, it wasn't even about that. It was the power of positive thinking and love that dominated here. And it just... So we're all celebrating, having great. All of a sudden, Tom is screaming. Ah! I'm like, what's going on, Tom? It was like, he was crying so hard that his eyepiece of his camera froze to his face. So of course, what do? I go into my sled and I pull out the, I have a thermos with some hot tea and I'm pouring it on his face. It was just one of those classic moments. And I look over and Doug, our expedition leader, who's done this a bunch of times, it was just so clear that this was different. It wasn't about the physical. It was about the mindset. So what do you do after that? You get great Facebook pictures. So here's Grant holding a GPS and it says 90.000. There's only one place on planet Earth you can get this. There's me on a good hair day. There's Grant pole dancing around the pole. There's Grant skiing around the world. Here's our entire team standing around the pole. We're all standing in different time zones. The purpose of this movie, and it's hopefully going to be out this fall, we've been working through it to get it done, is to raise awareness for this nonprofit. The High Five nonprofit inspired both these athletes. When they had a debilitating accident, the organization was there to prop them up, get them back on their feet. The result of that is these people are now touching the world. It's an incredible organization. I ask you all, if you can help this organization, they're out of Truckee, the High Fives Foundation, please do, because they're making the world a better place. This has been a life-changing message for me. The power of positive thought, possibility through positivity, has changed everything for me. In fact, when I talk to my teammates, they all agree that nothing's the same anymore. So, how did it change me? Well, I can tell you, like all of you in the room, I had boundaries, I had fears, I had things that I wouldn't allow myself to look at. Kind of like what we've heard multiple times today, right? What I realized is that's the clue. When you're facing something that you think is hard, or that you don't think you accomplish, that's when you should push further. Okay? Because only by pushing further do you realize what you're capable of. And if you keep at it, and you have this positive mindset, and you have these people that are supporting and worshiping you, anything is possible. So, how big can you dream? What is the hardest, craziest thing that you can imagine, that you really want, that you want to accomplish? Hey, baby steps, positive mindset, and unrelenting hard work will get you there. Okay? Enjoy the road. Change the world.